Hi everyone, this is Abby Timmis from Abigail Cecile, and I'm going to show you how to finish a needlepoint canvas into an ornament. So first off, let's talk about supplies. You're going to need a finished needlepoint canvas that you have stitched and taken off its frame if you use one. You're also going to need batting and an acid-free board. I like to use 1/8 of an inch thick, and I cut it into a circle the same size as my finished needlepoint round with an X-Acto knife, but I find it really hard to get a perfect smooth circle with just the X-Acto knife, so I like to take a block of fine sandpaper and sand the edges of the circles until they match and until they're smooth in a perfect circle. And then the batting, you can use cotton or wool batting. Cut those into a circle as well, and you're going to want it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick as well. And so I've actually doubled up 2 pieces of batting per side to get it to that thickness, but if you want to just use 1 circle per side, then just get a higher loft. So you're also going to need backing fabric, a skein of embroidery floss, something that's going to coordinate color-wise with your project. We're going to turn it into a cord later on. I'm using DMC size 5 pearl cotton, tacky glue, and lots of pins. You're also going to need a needle. I prefer using a curved needle if you have one, and heavy-duty thread in a coordinating color that will match your background fabric. There's an optional step that you can take, and this is to sew with a sewing machine all around the edge of the ornament. What this does is it just secures the stitching and the canvas before we start cutting it. If you do this, I recommend definitely placing a piece of fabric behind the canvas as you sew, and what that does is it protects the back of your stitching from the sewing machine and the feed dogs of the sewing machine. Then go ahead and trim any excess fabric. I definitely recommend this step. I think that it just keeps everything secure. Another optional step that I really recommend and actually have not done here is to stitch an extra 2 to 3 rows of either tent or cross stitch around the design area of the canvas. And this just ensures that when we go to bend the canvas around the cardboard round, you are not going to see any weight of the canvas. If you don't stitch those extra 2 to 3 rows, there's definitely a strong possibility that you will see the weight of the canvas. That's okay. There are other ways to fix it, like going back with a few dabs of paint or some dabs of marker to mask that weight of the canvas. But if you go ahead and stitch 2 to 3 rows, then you should be all set. We're going to begin by cutting the excess canvas off of the design. So you're just going to take scissors and cut around your needlepoint canvas, leaving about 3/4 of an inch. Next, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to make a cut from the outside of the canvas towards the stitching. And you're going to get pretty close to stitching within a few threads of the canvas, 1 or 2 threads of the canvas, ideally. And you're going to do this all the way around the canvas, spacing the cuts about 3/4 of an inch apart. Next, you're going to take your batting and your cardboard round, flip your canvas over, and on the wrong side of the canvas, you're going to create a sandwich with the needlepoint canvas on the bottom, the batting next, and the board round last. Grab your pins, and we're going to begin pinning the needlepoint canvas down to the board. So begin at the top of the canvas and simply stretch the canvas over the board and then sink a pin into the canvas and through the board. Now you're going to turn the canvas 90 degrees, and at the bottom of the design you're going to do the same. And it's really important to place your pins in this order by going from one side of the design, turning the canvas 90 degrees, and then pinning the other side. What this does is it ensures that as you stretch the canvas over the board, the canvas stretches evenly. Make sure that as you stretch the canvas over the board, the stitching is not just staying on the front surface of the board, but it is wrapping around the sides of the board. Once you've pinned all 4 sides, go ahead and place 4 more pins in between. And then you're just going to continue placing more pins, filling in between the pins that have already been placed. Don't be afraid to be pretty aggressive, pulling that canvas, stretching that canvas over the board. You're definitely going to need to yank it a bit. So here we are. I've got quite a few pins all the way around the design. Next, we're going to take our tacky glue, squeeze a good dollop of glue onto the board. Then taking your first canvas tab, you're going to, with a bit of yank, pull that tab around the board and hold it firmly in place. Give it a second just to let the tacky glue start to bind, and then grab a pin and pin that tab down. And you're just going to repeat this process of placing glue down onto the cardboard and onto the previous tab, pulling that canvas tab firmly around the cardboard, holding it down as the glue binds, and pinning in place. And you're going to do that all the way around the circle. You're going to go ahead and let the canvas dry completely, and then pull all of those pins out. Next, we're going to create the back of the ornament. So grab your backing fabric and your second cardboard round, and you're going to cut a circle of backing fabric out using the board as a guide. Make the fabric about 3/4 of an inch larger than the board. And once again, you're going to make cuts from the outside of the fabric round towards the inside, spacing them about 3/4 of an inch apart again. But this time you don't have to get so close to the cardboard round as you did with a canvas. You're leaving maybe, 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. Again, you're going to create a sandwich. Flip your fabric over so the wrong side is facing you. Place the batting down and the board down. And then we're going to do the same process as we did with the front of the ornament. We're going to stretch the fabric over the board and sink a pin into the fabric and into the board. Flip the circle 90 degrees and do the same on the bottom. Now, you definitely do not need to use the same force as you did with the canvas. Fabric is just more delicate and much easier to stretch, so work more gently with it. Once everything is pinned, take your tacky glue and glue all the way around the board. Then you're going to start pulling the fabric tags around the cardboard and holding them down to glue. The fabric will glue to the board much faster than the canvas did, so there's no need to pin, and you probably don't need to hold the fabric down quite as long. I prefer to glue down every other tag and then go back and glue down the rest. This just really helps the tags to lay flat and pull evenly on the opposite side of the board, and to create a really smooth surface on both sides of the board. Let the ornament back dry and then remove all the pins. Next, we're going to grab the front and back of the ornament and we're going to glue them together. Using your tacky glue, glue all the way around the circle of the back, leaving about 1.5 inch gap at the top of the round. And then once you've glued all the way around the outside, go ahead and put some glue in the center as well. Next, you need to mark the top of your ornament with a pin. You can do this on the back side of the ornament too. Fabric does have a grain, so if you want that grain to run, horizontally from left to right across the back of the canvas, then definitely mark the top as well. And then you're just going to press the back and the front together. And one thing that can be really helpful is to place a weight on it while it dries. Something like a stack of books works really well for this. While the glue is drying, we're going to create our cording. Now, you do not have to create your own cording. You can buy it at your local craft store or fabric store. However, your color options are going to be a lot more limited. So if you found some cording that's a good color match for your ornament, just skip ahead to when we are attaching the cording to the ornament. First, we are going to cut our floss into long lengths of thread, and I cut them to be 80 inches long. Once they're cut and placed together, you're going to grab a pen or pencil or some straight utensil and tightly tie one end of your thread to the utensil. Now, cording makers are available. I have never used one personally. I've just always done it kind of the old-fashioned DIY way. But if you have a cording maker, then definitely use it and just follow the instructions on the package. Once you've got that end tightly tied to your utensil, you are going to tie the other end of your thread to something that's really sturdy. I always prefer like a knob on a kitchen cabinet. I find that really useful. You could also tie it to like the leg of a stool, anything that isn't going to move around too much. And this process is going to be a little bit hard to show on camera. So what you're essentially going to do is you're just going to start twisting that utensil, and you're going to twist and you're going to twist and twist and twist and twist until the thread is so twisty that it kind of springs back on itself and just curls together. When it's so twisty it's ready to spring back on itself, hold the thread in the very center and let it spring back on itself from that point. Once the two ends have twisted together, you're just going to really work that twist, kind of massaging it, twisting it together with your fingers and just working out any kinks, creating a really smooth twist. Then you're going to cut your thread off with a pencil and off of your kitchen cabinet knob, and you're going to tie a knot in the end. So setting aside the cord for a while, you're going to take some heavy duty thread and a curved needle if you have one. A normal needle will work, but it'll be a little bit harder. And you're going to double up or triple up that heavy duty thread. And we're going to sew the front and the back of the ornament together using an invisible stitch. We're going to stitch all the way around the ornament, but you're going to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches at the top of the ornament unstitched. Once you've tied a knot at the end of your thread, you're going to anchor it in the fold of the fabric. Then you're going to push the needle into the canvas and close to the stitching, directly opposite or slightly behind the knot. You're going to take the needle along the canvas about 1/4 inch and then push it back out. Then you're going to position the needle and the fabric directly opposite to where you came out of the canvas and take the needle through the fabric about 1/4 inch. Pull tight and repeat all the way around the edge of the ornament. Again, leaving about 1 inch to 1.5 inches at the very top of the ornament unstitched. Okay, so I've stitched all the way around and I have left 1.5 inches at the top of the canvas unstitched. So now we're ready to put our cording on. We're going to get rid of the knot in the cord because that's going to be too bulky to put in between the front and back of the ornament. So just grab your tacky glue and smear a bunch on to the end of the cord right next to the knot. Just really rub it in with your fingers and then let it dry, and once it's dried, just cut that knot right off and the cording will stay. Then you're going to shove that cording down in between the front and back side of the ornament and just get it in there really well. Place a pin to hold the cord in place at the top, and then using your tacky glue, run the glue along the edge of the ornament. Then grab your cording and gently push the cording down onto the edge of the ornament, gluing it in place. Grab a few pins and pin that cording in place as it dries. Now, I put too much glue down. As you can see, it's kind of pushing out from under the cording, and you really don't want that to happen. I'm going to have to go back and clean that up with the edge of a pin or my fingernail. It will dry clear, but I still don't want too much glue coming out. Once you've glued all the way around, you're going to glue and bring the cord up to the point where the beginning of the cord comes out from in between the ornament. Glue the cord down and place a few more pins to hold the top of that cord really tightly as it dries. Let your cording dry, and then we're going to create the loop. So first you have to find a good length. I personally like my loops to be about 3 inches long. So if you have excess cording, we're going to follow the same procedure that we did with the knotted end of the cording. You're going to mark where the cording needs to be cut, and then you're going to take tacky glue and you're going to just work it into the edge of the cording and let it dry, and then cut it to the correct length. Take the end of the cording and really shove it down in between the ornament. Squeeze some tacky glue down into the ornament, press it together and let it dry. Now we're going to finish doing the invisible stitch across the top of the ornament. So again, you're going to anchor the needle in the fabric and then go back and forth, going between the canvas to the fabric to the canvas, creating that invisible stitch. When you get to the part of the ornament where the cording comes out of the ornament, take a few extra stitches going through that cording into the canvas, into the fabric. Really what you're doing is just strengthening that area. To finish, tie off and ink your thread, and then clip it off with some scissors. And now your ornament is finished. If the cording doesn't completely cover the white of the canvas, like I said before, you can go back with, in this case, some yellow paint and just put a few dabs wherever that white of the canvas is showing, and that will hide it really well. If you'd like to see a list of materials or other fun videos and tutorials, then visit my website at www.abigailcecile.com. Thanks so much for watching.